Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films and think about them and the ramifications of what they show us. That was a Field and Stream film called Days Afield with Rod and Gun, a Goose Safari. We have a couple of films in this series, and it does not bode well for the animal listed in the title. Unless it's a dog, and then it's okay. That came from Mogul Brothers via Oregon Archive, and behind me we have a film scanner set up, and I'm loving that we're able to digitize some of these films right off the bat. This one, it says on the can, returning. I don't think we've seen this, but I don't know. I watched the first couple of seconds of it. I'm not sure what this is called. Anyways, enjoy. Seen this. I'm sorry. So the title was written on. I don't know where that title came from. It said returning, but it could have been. Yeah, it said right here. Returning, but it's Hardest Working Dollar, which we have seen. And I'll tell you, that's a jaunty film. Starts off really great, considering it's just about unemployment insurance and getting unemployment. All right, got another film set up for you. We're trying not to duplicate what we showed. This one is made by the U.S. Navy, and it's made for the wives of the people who serve. Navy wives, of which my mom was a Navy wife when I was a wee lad. Enjoy.
Ready home for a while. His air group had completed its carrier tour and was now based ashore at North Island. With this good chance in mind, we bought a car. In it, we took advantage of some of the recreational facilities. Swimming at the beach, and tennis. On a Saturday or Sunday, we sometimes visited a Navy club. But much of our leisure time was devoted to Fred's studies, which would set him in line for promotion to petty officer second class. He'd begun to study on board his ship, and was now boning hard for the soon-to-come examination. I knew he wanted the promotion, so I not only encouraged him to study, but also helped him in whatever way I could. Fred got his promotion. And I was very, very proud of him. One morning, a couple of months later,
Thanks, honey. Hey, what's the matter?
nothing.
Now, look, there's something wrong. What is it?
Just don't feel well, I guess.
Can I get you an aspirin or something?
I don't think an aspirin will help very much. Don't worry, honey. I'll be all right.
Now, look, there's something wrong. What is it?
I think I've got morning sickness. I'm going to have a baby.
A baby? You? We better tell somebody. Carol.
Fred, no, it's too soon to tell anyone.
Oh, too soon. Sure. Oh, gosh, honey. Oh, gee, you're wonderful.
We both are. During the next few months, my routine changed considerably. There was a registering at the Navy Hospital and frequent routine visits there. I noticed that many people showed me extra courtesy. And of course, Carol and the other wives were cheerfully concerned about me. Fred, naturally, was especially attentive and helpful. Fred also had re-enlisted. We talked it over, and he decided to sign up for another 4 years. There was Fred's pride in the Navy and in his job. There was the uncertainty of civilian life. And there was the coming baby. Then suddenly the blow fell. There was no secret this time as to where Fred was going. To Little America, to help set up a base camp which would later be used by a group of scientists on an expedition that was to be known as Operation Deep Freeze. It was more than likely that Fred would be down there when our baby was born, and that was a little frightening. I found it easier if I kept myself busy, useful, and cheerful. That Fred was thousands of miles away was unfortunate, but I was proud of the special work he was doing. The least I could do to keep him from worrying was to show him I could take care of things at home. Just before the baby was born, I received a late telephone call. A call that was unofficial Navy, yet very typical Navy.
Hello?
Mrs. Young? Mrs. Van Young?
Yes, who's this?
Jack Tupper here, Mrs. Young. I'm a ham radio operator, and I have a message for you from Operation Deep Freeze at the South Pole. I am Mrs. Young. Go ahead. Okay. Here, you take it.
Look, if anything happened yet.
What kind of a question is that?
Look, ask her. It has to do with a baby.
A baby? Mrs. Young, Fred wants to know if anything has happened.
Tell him not yet, but any day now.
Look, you tell her I love her, and I wish I was with her.
He loves you, and he wishes he were with you.
Tell him I love him, too.
She loves you, too.
You know that she loves me, too?
For a long time after Tommy was born, it seemed I did nothing but change, wash, and hang out to dry a never-ending stream of diapers. Actually, a lot else happened. A highlight was the baby's christening, attended by Carol and her husband and several other friends. Carol became godmother to Tommy, and to our great pleasure and pride, Fred's division officer became godfather. Another wonderful thing that happened was that Fred, by hard study, some of it while he was at the South Pole, became a petty officer, first class. One thing, however, hadn't changed, the car. But it was still running, and it would have to serve us a little longer. For with Fred's increased pay, we decided to buy our own home. There was a feeling of security in the idea of having our own house. It was practical, too, for if Fred were transferred to another station, we could always rent it to another Navy family. We looked at several places, but we especially liked a house in a pleasant nearby suburb. So we bought the house, using Fred's re-enlistment bonus we had saved for the down payment and financing it through in-service FHA. For a long time, Carol had been talking about the Navy Wives Club to which she belonged, and had urged me to attend a meeting. One day, I got curious and went along. Before the formal meeting, I met and talked with many of the individual members. I was greatly impressed by the backgrounds and interests of these women. They were leaders not only in Navy life, but in the community as well. Mrs. McCloskey was the president of the local PTA. Mrs. Maisel led a Girl Scout troop. Mrs. Wright had organized and taught at a nursery school. Mrs. Benton worked with a group of emotionally disturbed children. I joined the club and have never regretted it. Partly influenced by the Wives Club, I broadened my horizons. With Tommy, I went on many of the club's organized outings. To the local zoo, for example, to the beach, and on excursions to nearby points of interest. I also interested myself in club charity activities. The wives prepared layettes, for instance, for distribution to new mothers at the hospitals. At the same time, officers' wives collected clothes for Navy relief shops and for orphanages in Korea and elsewhere, and served at Navy Relief Society thrift shops. Needless to say, the years that followed brought with them their problems and joys, some of them peculiar to the Navy. Fred was transferred, and for a time we lived at Alameda, renting our house as we'd planned. Carol and her husband also moved, but had returned recently to San Diego, where they bought a house close by ours. Soon we returned, and our friendship picked up just where it left off. But somehow friendships never need renewing in the Navy. They're always there, warm, undemanding. Of our problems, there was a time, for instance, when Tommy was 5 years old.
Tommy, what happened? Honey, what? I heard him yell. It looks pretty bad, Carol. I'll have to call the hospital. Look, I'll get him into the car and you get your things. Okay. Want me to call Fred? Yeah, maybe you better, but try not to get him worried. Will you call the hospital? All right.
At 5, Tommy, like any normal boy of his age, was either screaming with laughter or mortal pain. Never, it seems, anything in between. The big naval hospital where Tommy was born gave me a feeling of confidence, knowing that in a few minutes he'd be in the hands of competent doctors and nurses. Yes, and knowing, too, that after Tommy was fixed up, we wouldn't have a big medical bill to worry about. The doctor had seen Tommy several times before, and they got along well together. He said Tommy would be all right. He'd need a couple of stitches and a tetanus shot, and they'd taken an x-ray to be certain there was no fracture. Did I want to wait outside while all this was going on? Once, perhaps, I might have been squeamish about staying, but not now. Not after years of being a Navy wife. Tommy needed me, needed my comfort. I'd stay with Tommy. While they got him ready, I thought about those years. Tommy stood up to the medical treatment like the good little sailor he was. And by evening, he was playing baseball in the backyard with his friends as though nothing had happened. Despite my outside activities, the bulk of my time I devoted to my family and to my home. For, like most Navy wives, I firmly believe that family is the cornerstone, the foundation of the Navy way of life, of the American way of life. If it is strong, it reflects in the well-being and morale of Fred and the other men of the Navy. In whatever corner of the world they are, whether on exercise maneuvers or on policing action to stop communist aggression, their job is made easier by the knowledge that back home is a strong, self-reliant family unit. Yes, it is through family, I know, that the Navy wife dedicates herself to her community, to the Navy, and to her country. The time again came when Fred had to decide about re-enlistment.
Hey, honey, where's Tommy?
Playing outside.
Hey, come here, sit down for a minute, will you? Look, I've been thinking about shipping over again.
Oh, well, so was I.
Look, I'm doing good, Ann. I think I can make Chief Petty Officer my next enlistment, and was even thinking of going for 20. The only thing is that, well, look, how do you feel about it?
Well,
Oh, I know you must get lonesome when I'm on sea duty, but, well, you've got Tommy and our friends, and, gosh, you know, I'm due to draw overseas shore duty pretty soon, and you and Tommy will be able to come with me. Why, the Navy paid for the whole thing, and they got...
Fred was really selling up a storm. He thought first he might draw Hawaii. He knew I'd love the beach there. As for the breakers, Tommy would soon be riding them in like a fish. Then he thought it might be Japan. A shipmate had told him all about it. There were temples to see and parks to walk in, even a yacht club for the wives, and stateside schools for Tommy maintained by the Navy. Next it was that someday we'd get to Europe, maybe France. I'd wander through the quaint streets there, visit the hotels. I stopped him when he began to describe the girl. Maybe I should wish you draw duty at the South Pole again.
All right, honey, look. The point I'm trying to make is this. Being a Navy wife has its own special problems. Well, I've always thought you kind of took them in stride. You kind of enjoyed it. Well, coping with them. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. I like your Navy.
What do you mean, my Navy? It's as much yours as it is mine, but... Well, to me, I don't know. I think that it's you and wives like you that give the Navy the heart and backbone that it has.
Why, that's one of the nicest things I've heard in a long time. Get your son in here, sailor. Chow's ready.
'59. I think I got that film on eBay. What's interesting about that is it is really kind of to convince the wife that it's okay for her husband to re-up. The Navy invests all this time and energy in training people, and they want them to re-up. And so they know that one of the factors is that if the dude has a family and is married, the spouse might be someone who's pressuring them not to re-up. So it's interesting. I love films like that. They really kind of set this tone, and then you get a sense of like what was happening at that time, what the Navy was interested in, and what appeals they were making as far as patriotism, as far as security. We might get to go to Hawaii. Stuff like that. All right. I got another film set up. Hopefully this one won't get me in trouble. It is from Canada, but it looks pretty good. I haven't seen it. It's a new film, a new acquisition. It's called Shyness. Enjoy.
The end of June, the class picnic. It was a bright and sparkling day when we held it this year, but I was thoughtful. I was thinking of the responsibility that we, as teachers and parents, have towards the children in our care. We know, of course, that it amounts to more than just teaching the 3 R's. But we don't always realize just how much we can do towards helping the individual child, like Anna, grow up to be a happy and useful adult, emotionally healthy. I didn't, at least until this year. It all began one day last September. A psychologist came from the child guidance clinic in our town to give the children what she called a sociometric test, a test to find out how they rated as sociable individuals. They had to answer a lot of questions, like, what 3 children in this class would you choose to go with you to the school party? Whom would you choose to join the stamp club or the sewing club? And so on. It seemed a bit like a popularity contest to me, and I didn't take it too seriously, at least that day. However, a few days later, she came back with a kind of diagram of the social pattern in my class. In the center were the lively, confident children nearly everybody had chosen. Others were chosen only by their immediate friends. But there were 3, right outside the circle, whom nobody chose at all. They were quiet, well-behaved children. Too quiet, perhaps. Certainly not the ones I had thought of as difficult, but they were the friendless ones. The psychologist told me that at the clinic they're concerned with such children because being an outsider like this may mean the child is not developing in a healthy way, and unless we do something for them now, when they are still young, they may have ahead of them the lonely, frustrated life of the shy adult. We've all met them, the shy ones. I have a cousin like that. We invite her to parties sometimes because we're sorry for her, living alone in a room. But parties don't help. People don't seem to understand her, the way she freezes up. We can hardly blame them. But I've often seen her look as if she would burst into tears if she were alone. We all feel sorry for her, especially when we think of the way she's losing out on so many things. She applies for the job she is trained for and wants, but she always manages to put her worst foot forward, to sound like a nobody. People can't be expected to understand her constant belittling of herself. Actually, she is a highly intelligent and capable person. But others, not nearly as able, but with self-confidence and assurance, win the place that could and should be hers. As a member of the community, she is not as useful as she could be, and she is not happy, for she knows that life is passing her by. Longing for the warmth of human companionship, hating her fears of others but powerless against them, there lies nothing ahead for her but years of loneliness, desolate, barren, empty, because she is shy. Patterns of adult behavior usually develop in early childhood. That's why the Child Guidance Clinic asked me to watch how the outsiders in my class fared among the other children. For in spite of the happy gaiety around them, they might be headed for the kind of unhappiness that is ruining my cousin's life. Robert almost always seemed to be off by himself, but he was always doing something. collecting things or experimenting. He seemed fascinated in his quiet, gentle way with the world around him. And though he was alone a lot, he seemed to be a happy child. Anna didn't. She always seemed to be just on the edge of things. I felt that she wanted to play with them, wanted to be liked, but something made it too painful for her. She was the girl who always walked home alone, and her eyes were wistful as she looked at the others. Jimmy's eyes weren't looking at anything. The bustling, vigorous life around him didn't seem to interest him, unless it came too near. The other children never mistreated him, but he seemed terrified of everything. Now that I was watching him, I realized there was something terribly wrong with Jimmy. So I was very glad that the psychiatrist from the clinic wanted to see these children, among others, when he came to the school a few days later. He talked with them alone and gave them various tests, and afterwards he discussed with me what he thought about them. Jimmy is emotionally sick. His terror of others cannot be dismissed as mere shyness. It is a symptom of profound emotional disturbance. He won't grow out of it. He must be helped out by professional people. The clinic will have to work with Jimmy and his parents for a long time and start him back on the road to health before we teachers can do much to help him. Robert? Nothing the matter with him. If he's alone a lot, it's because he likes to be. Busy pursuing his own real and healthy interests. Our job is not to change him, but to help him develop further his natural qualities. Anna's different again. Not deeply disturbed like Jimmy, nor happily independent like Robert, she is the typical shy child. She can too easily become another Cousin Frances, unless we parents and teachers recognize her condition as largely our problem and do something about it before it's too late. I'd never thought of shyness as a problem we could do anything useful about. I'd thought that some people, like my cousin, were just born shy, like being born with a limp. But I learned I had the wrong idea that day as we were watching the nursery class. Things became much clearer to me when the doctor began to explain about shyness.
In the first place, if anyone's born shy, we all are. Watch any group of very young children, and you'll see that the new ones, like Carol, act shyly in the face of unfamiliar situations. When we are little, we'd all like to run away home sometimes, away from those rough and noisy strangers. But this is the age, from 3 to 6, the normal time in growing up, when we learn to adjust ourselves to other people. Sensible parents and teachers help us over the rough spots. Help us to learn by seeing that we have the chance to work and play with others. It's not always easy, but we do learn gradually. Of course, if it's as simple as that, you'll ask, why didn't Jimmy and Anna learn? Well, we at the clinic have gone into their backgrounds and know a lot now about the early influences in their lives. And that means especially their parents. Parents know their children need loving. But that doesn't mean the smothering, overprotective, sometimes jealous love that watched over Jimmy's every move. Jimmy's instincts were healthy enough, He had the desire to share in the fun of the other children. Naturally, inexperienced as he was, he'd have to learn to give and take, to expect to get into the little scrapes that are part of every healthy child's world. But Mother wouldn't let him go, wouldn't give him the chance to learn for himself. Since then, I've talked a lot with her, now that Jimmy is under treatment with us, and she is beginning to understand how all his life she had been holding him back from healthy contact with the world, instead of letting him go forth to meet it on his own. Anna's mother was different. When Anna was very young, like all little children, she had one primary need: to feel for sure that she was warmly and securely loved. But Mother was very demanding. Not understanding that children's abilities mature slowly, she would give her tasks far beyond the normal child's capacity at that age. Of course, she meant well. She wanted to bring up Anna properly. But too often the result was that Anna failed. She was always failing. And what it meant to the child was, Mummy doesn't love me. Mother did love her, of course. She was very proud of Anna and liked showing her off to the ladies who came calling. Anna will recite in a minute. But such an insecure child, who feels dimly that she has failed to win her own mother's love and approval, is going to be even more frightened of strangers. It's better not to try, not to risk another failure, to retreat from situations involving others instead of facing them. Mother's disappointment only increased the unease of the bewildered child. Such influences in time were to turn Anna into the typically shy child, preferring not to be noticed. But people did notice her. Well-meaning parents and teachers, not understanding how real the fears of such children are, try to force them out of their shyness. It sounds reasonable. What's so hard about reading aloud in front of the class? Just get her up there and she'll learn to get over it. All she needs is to try. Really try. But with a child as shy as Anna, it just doesn't work. In fact, it can be very harmful. Another failure, another shame. And she has reason to be even more timid than ever. Fortunately, the shy child like Anna can still be helped. But it demands genuine understanding from parents and teachers.
That talk with the doctor started us teachers off on an interesting year. Miss Smith, the gym teacher, was a sympathetic sort and understood the problem quickly. Among all the children of the rhythm class, she'd found Anna most timid, of course, but also a naturally graceful little girl who seemed to love dancing. We decided we might be able to use this fact to try to bring out in Anna the beginnings of self-confidence and to help her earn the respect of the others. Watching the rhythm class that day, I'm sure we all wondered, will she freeze up again, as she always has? this time, something was different. A wise, thoughtful teacher had picked on the one activity that Anna couldn't help doing well, where she really was better than the others. And Anna temporarily lost her fears in the joy of doing something she liked very much. It was a little triumph for the teacher and for Anna. But it didn't last. In school, Anna was as shy and withdrawn as ever, unlike the others in our discussion classes. This was a kind of special period, 1 hour a week, which we started last fall as a form of training in democratic living. The children were free to talk about any subject that concerned them directly, and it worked, even with children as young as these. That day, they were discussing the school rules. Robert had a lot to say about it. Even Jimmy was showing signs of interest. In these classes, I didn't act as teacher or even as chairman, and it was wonderful to feel the different atmosphere that existed once they felt they were completely free to speak their minds. Bernard's late arrival started a lot of arguments. Some thought there should be stiff penalties for latecomers. Walter thought there shouldn't be any penalties at all, an idea they all seemed to enjoy, except Anna. She still wasn't at ease, as though she felt herself different and apart from the others. But we persisted. During the course of the year, we arranged various group projects like decorating the classroom for Valentine's Day. We had noticed that, left to herself, Anna never volunteered to do anything. So we gave her jobs that would involve her in cooperating with others. And given a chance, she began to learn through her own experience, and not because somebody told her so, that others were not so unkind or frightening after all. I could see from the confidence she was gaining that at home, too, her parents were learning to give her the encouragement and approval she had so long lacked and needed. Yet something more was needed. Something that went still deeper. The other children were able to share ideas, talk with one another easily and naturally and without fear, seemingly, even when they were talking about things they were afraid of, as they were in a discussion class not long ago. They found they had a lot in common. Little Madge was afraid to sleep alone at her grandfather's farm, though she'd never done it, because she imagined there might be bats. I had never seen Anna so thoughtful. That Madge, who was usually so confident and cocky, should be afraid of anything at all, seemed to fascinate Anna. Carl, the one everybody admired for his strength, was afraid of snakes, even though he had only seen them in pictures. Even Walter, the leader of the class, was afraid of high places. Anna was learning from them all the one other thing she needed to know, that she wasn't alone in her fears, that perhaps they were as groundless as Patsy's fear of the bogeyman. For Anna, it was the beginning of understanding, a realization that she wasn't so different after all. And for the first time in a year, she made a move on her own. She began to talk to them about her own fears, up to now so real and paralyzing, and as she did, she seemed no longer afraid. She was one of them, at last. That was a month ago. Anna is still a little shy and timid, but it means something different now. It's because she's trying new things. It's delightful to see how the other children are helping and accepting her. Those very children of whom she once lived in fear. Even Jimmy is changing slowly. He's beginning to take a healthy interest in the world around him and to respond almost warmly to other people. He's going to be all right, like Anna. No fear now of her growing up to be another Cousin Frances. And Robert? Nothing the matter with him in the first place.
Duck is a word that stands for a bird that walks with little web feet. Feathers on its back and it talks with a quack to anyone it might be. Keeping clean is lots of fun for ducklings, ducks, and everyone. Always washed and clean and neat, and nicer birds you'll seldom meet. Their feathers are so clean and bright, they keep them clean both day and night. Ducks take baths like you and I, but ducks do not need towels to dry. Duck is a word that stands for a bird that walks with little web feet. Feathers on its back and it talks with a quack to anyone it might be.
I felt a little down. I needed a little boost about ducks cleaning themselves. So that's a very happy song. Has nothing to do with what we just saw, but so I like these that time period, those early 50s films that are kind of looking at mental health. They're trying to be progressive. They're trying to just, instead of just condemning kids and people for their behavior, to kind of say, like, wait a minute, there might be something going on here, and let's try to figure out what that is, and let's see how we can help. Of course, they didn't always help. There were some bad decisions that were made in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, but there were some good decisions made, so I'll give them credit for that. Thanks for tuning in today. There's a lot of new people on the in the comment, and I very much appreciate that. I think we're going to end it a little bit early today, but we'll be back again tomorrow. Jennifer Thompson, all right, I get it. You like puppet films, cornet puppet films, but we're not going to show cornet puppet films right now. So you can keep asking for them, but I'm not going to show it. Sorry. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Maybe we'll show a cornet puppet film tomorrow, and it might be a different one than what you're asking for. It kind of depends on what I can find and what I'm feeling. And so I was not feeling a cornet puppet film today because I don't have easy access to it. That's the way it is with the requests. Sometimes we can help you out if we got it handy. Sometimes we can't. So sorry about that. I'd like to, it takes a lot to kind of run things and find things and all that. But I very much appreciate your comments and your eyeballs, and I appreciate ducks. Geese, not so much. Ducks, yes. Anyways, everybody have a great rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow. Everybody take care.